Hello. Hello, Dr. Nikhil. Very good evening.
Very good evening. Tell me.
Thank you so much for being on my show. How are you?
I'm good. Um,
Very well.
Making the best of the pandemic, I guess.
Yes, absolutely. So I'm extremely delighted to have you on my show.
Thank you.
So to all our dear audiences, of course, they're assembling. So to all our dear audiences, I take immense pleasure to introduce to you Dr. Nikhil Latey, who is a renowned physiotherapist and sports scientist with SportsMed Active, which is an all-encompassing center for athletes, which has most of the services that are pertinent, including osteopathy, rehabilitation, physiotherapy, sports science, imagery, whatnot, orthopedics as well. So you've had your own success in the niche that you've had, from heading the medical team in the Olympic gold quest to being a former physiotherapist for Maricom. How does it make you feel with all these massive achievements? How has the experience been like for you?
Um, well, the thing is, when you are actually doing it, you don't have time to think about it because you're way too busy.
True.
So when I was with OGQ, I was pretty much living out of a suitcase. I was traveling almost 28 days a month, every month for 6.5 years, averaging 6 flights a month. I mean, can you imagine being home for a few months now and me not being home for months together then? So when you're in the midst of it, you don't actually get the time to reminisce. But now that I think back and I'm like, yeah, it was pretty hectic. I can't imagine how I went through that and still kept my sanity.
True, absolutely. So, how has it been for you? So, in the sense, what was your experience like working with Maricom? I mean, she is a very accomplished boxer in her own way in India, from India.
So, as head of sports science and rehab with OGQ, I was actually responsible for taking care of all the athletes supported by OGQ. And so, Mary was supported by OGQ along with other tops athletes like Saina Nehwal, Gagan Narang, Apurvi Chandela, Vijay Kumar, Sindhu, PV Sindhu, and many more. So at that point, it was uh, I was working with a very small team, and our main focus was the Olympics, of course. And if you think back to 2012, things were quite different. And but there are a few things which are common across athletes, top performing athletes across sports. Um, they are incredibly determined. Like whether you give them the infrastructure, whether you give them ideal training conditions, or life becomes a bit hard. I have never seen them satisfied, and that's I think the one big thing to take away from whether
True.
it's a phenomenal athlete like Mary or an up and coming athletes who we hear about currently is satisfaction. As soon as you feel satisfied, you don't push hard. So one thing that I learned from people like Mary, people like Saina, is no matter what, they have this fire in their belly that keeps them pushing the envelope. I mean, since you mentioned Mary, let me just say that the woman has achieved everything that you and I would ever hope to achieve,
True,
right?
because we know we're acutely aware of the fact where she comes from. And I mean, Mary Com, she has been the biggest inspiration for a lot of Indian women, especially. And considering the fact that she's from northeastern part of India, I think that's something that we should, have that highlighted. So what you mentioned is very true. Very true.
And she's still not satisfied. She still boxes and she's still
Yeah.
performing well. And she secured a place for Tokyo Olympics.
Wow.
Whenever that happened. So she fought in her first World Championships in 2001, where she got a silver medal. And here, 19 years later, she's going back for her third Olympics.
Right.
So
Certainly. Great. I mean, That's wonderful. So I know that you've had your own experience, your own quotient of experience. So also aware of the fact that sports med and sports med active are two different things. So you work with sports med active, and I was just wondering, what is the difference between sports med and sports med active, and could you enlighten our audiences about it more elaborately?
So SportsMed started first. It's the brainchild of Dr. Anand Joshi. He's a arthroscopic surgeon in Mumbai. He's got over 30 years of experience and just a phenomenal surgeon, to be honest. And he had this lifelong ambition that he wants to have a specialized center catering to athletes. So yes, of course, we have the equipment to cater to everyone, but athletes should know that there is one place that they can go to in case they are injured. That was his ambition in life. So in 2013, he started SportsMed Mumbai, which is primarily an orthopedic setup with state-of-the-art operation theaters, wards, all of that. And then as things grew and the requirement for return to sport and rehabilitation also went up, in 2017, we started SportsMed Active. So it's located in the same premises on different floors. So SportsMed is primarily an orthopedic setup. SportsMed Active is primarily a rehab and recovery setup, return to sports setup.
Sure. Okay, perfect. Because actually, I'm aware that people from both sports and entertainment industry have been the clients of sports med in particular, like Sachin Tendulkar to Sneha Bijlani to Vidya Balan to Virender Sehwag. So I think it's amazing what you guys have done so far. Your on route has been very interesting. So you've had your own prodigious success in your career. Now, what would be your master advice to young and budding physiotherapists or sports scientists trying to grow in this industry that you're already a part
of? Don't take things for granted. That would be my number one advice. That just because, there are two parts to it when I say don't take things for granted. One is don't assume things will happen to you just because you're good at something. It doesn't work that way. You still have to put in an incredible amount of hard work. And once you reach some place, like say you've always wanted to be physio for the Mumbai Indians, let's say, okay, why not? People can have that ambition. Reaching there is not the end of the story. Once you're there, you still have to deliver on the trust those athletes have put on you. That is super important because as a healthcare giver, when I'm working with an athlete, the athlete is basically trusting me with their career. If I'm not taking care of their bodies, if I'm not taking care of their injuries, I could easily walk away and work with another athlete, but the athlete I walked away from, their career is in a mess.
True.
So don't take things lightly. What you do matters, and don't take things for granted. You have to work incredibly hard, no matter whether you're on your first step or you have already achieved any kind of standing. It never goes away, and things never get easier. You always have to work hard.
True, because I think you're kind of like the backbone for athletes. They really need you. You have to be in sync when working with an athlete for your clients. So what you mentioned is true because a lot of us, I think, even in general sense, the Tenzin show is all about positivity and success. So I think even on a general scale, people can really integrate what you just mentioned. We should never take anything for granted, whether it's our career, whether it's our personal life, but in terms with regards to what you mentioned, physiotherapists and sports scientists, it's very important to not take things for granted and actually have a practical application with your theory. Right?
Yeah.
Okay,
absolutely.
Perfect. Now, did you always wanted to pursue physiotherapy? Because as children, we may end up taking something else what we actually planned. So was this a part of your plan? What you wanted to do?
Actually, I used to be a swimmer. That was another lifetime. But I used to be a swimmer, and I was into short distance swimming, 50 meters, 100 meters, and then somehow I got into long distance, and within 6 months, I showed a lot of promise in long distance. So at that point, I wondered, in case somebody had already told me that, okay, my body is built for long distance swimming, I may have been able to do more. So I looked around and I figured out that it's, say, the job of a sports scientist to do this analysis and tell you whether you're going to be good at something or not. This is well over 2 decades ago. At that point in India, sports science did not exist much. So the closest thing that came to it was physiotherapy. So which is why I did physiotherapy first, and then I went abroad for my master's in sports science. That's how I got into the field.
That's interesting, I think. So what do you think is the future of physiotherapy in India? Because we know that this is at the embryo stage right now, especially sports science is something that's really new to India. So what do you think is the future here in India?
Phenomenal, because anytime I hear people complaining that they're not able to get jobs or something, and I think to myself, we are 1.3 billion people, right? You'll find with clients. So the point is, on a tangent, on a funnier side, there are 2 professions which won't have an end, right?
Okay.
One is a gynecologist, one is a physiotherapist, because people will be born and people will get old.
Yes, absolutely.
So, no, the thing is that physiotherapy or rehabilitation services is just going to explode in India. The reason being, people want to stay fit. It's not, we aren't, say 20 years ago when people will be like, I have a little pain in my shoulder, but I can do my work, I'm okay with it. Now people want to have a more active lifestyle. To have a more active lifestyle, you do need specialists. So people don't want to wait to a point where they need a surgeon. They would rather go to a physio, get fit, get back to their activities. And the scope of physiotherapy is so vast that you can deal with expecting mothers, you can deal with geriatric patients, pediatrics, sports, people with lung conditions, people with heart conditions. You must have heard, given the global pandemic, that physios working in the respiratory centers, they have really got their work cut out. So the scope of physiotherapy is so vast. And at the end of the day, it's all about allowing or making sure that your body can deal with the load it is presented with. It's that simple an idea, making your body capable of dealing the load it is presented with from a physical standpoint. So I feel physiotherapy has got a very bright future. Yes, there will be teething problems. There will be consolidation that needs to be done, but things will improve. With regards to sports science, now that's a bit of a challenge. The reason being, if I get 100 people who have done their sports science degrees and ask them to come to India, I don't know where they will get employed. So at the moment, it's more like a chicken and egg thing. The potential is phenomenal, but are people willing to pay sports scientists and have them on board? Now, in say another 3 or 4 years' time, and it will be a very short time to be honest, things will suddenly flip. And then you'll find that like a wildfire, everyone, every athlete, every federation, every sports organization wants to have someone they can consult with for performance enhancement. So they will no longer be thinking about injuries. They'll be thinking about improving performance and winning championships. It takes a spark and that lights the wildfire, but it's not yet lit. But it can happen just in a couple of years. So today, if 100 sports scientists come to India, they might have a hard time getting a job. But within a couple of years, 100 might be too less.
True.
So we are just at that tipping point.
Yes, absolutely. But also, do you think there is a revelation in the education system as well when it comes to study of sports science here in India?
We are still a little behind.
Yes, we are, definitely.
Education system is still a little behind.
What is your vision of...
Yeah, the reason we are still a little behind is that, say, for example, when I did my course in London, right? The West Ham United team came to our university for their pre-season assessment. So as a sports scientist who wants to work with athletes, you're getting to see how actual high-performance athletes go about their business. in India, the problem is that not enough high performance athletes visit the sports science centers which are already present. And there are quite a few in India. So most of the people who work there approach sports from a clinical standpoint, not from a on-field performance standpoint. And therefore, the results or the recommendations you give aren't something that will benefit the athletes to that great an extent. Okay, I'm making a blanket term. I'm pretty sure I'm wrong on 100 counts, but just to put things in perspective.
They don't use it as something that's pivotal and essential, but something like a supplementary object, supplementary element.
Yeah.
Okay.
But the interest is growing and it will explode soon.
Okay, because I think education is something that massively impacts the way we can change the future of sports science in India. So also empirical analysis, that's something that I want to talk about, because in most of the developed countries, let's say United States or other European countries as well, a lot of Western countries are actually investing a lot of money in research in sort of education of sports science, and that is something that here in India that needs a push and acceleration, I believe.
In fact, the problem is, say for example, tomorrow I test a runner and I check their one of their parameters, say lactate threshold. I do not know whether that is good, bad, excellent in an Indian context. I don't know if that is good, bad, or excellent in an Indian context because the normative tables are no longer there. So if our universities, there are very few universities running sports science courses. If they start publishing papers where 1,000 people have undergone the same test and age-wise, sex-wise, what's the normal tables, then sure, you can make a guess. Like, for example, when you talk about body mass index, BMI tables, that you classify someone as obese and someone as normal weight. The normative data or the value, say if you are below 25, you're still okay. If you're above 25 BMI, you're obese. That 25 number has been verified across the globe by testing thousands of people. That kind of normative data is unfortunately not available in India. But like I said, we are at a cusp. A lot of good things are happening. I would like to give a shout out to some of the people who are doing a brilliant job. There's a CSS center in Chennai, which is doing a fantastic job. There's Kokilaben Ambani Hospital and HN Hospital in Mumbai, which are doing a fantastic job. So there are institutes which have proper sports science setups and are doing a phenomenal job. And we will see a lot of data coming through pretty quickly.
Sure. So I also know that now you train your clients virtually. Are you doing that currently?
A bit. As a physiotherapist, most of my job is hands-on. So if I can't touch my client, if I can't feel the muscles and the bone.
It's risky, right?
I'm sorry?
Is it going to be risky because virtual physiotherapy may not be that advisable?
Exactly. So in the current scenario, yes, I'm doing online consultations, but the effectiveness is quite limited.
Only when you're present there and when you have your own invigilation going on.
So in the meantime, it's online consultations. I am doing offline stuff, but then I try to limit patient contact. In fact, quite a few times when the patients say they want to come, I ask them, try a few home remedies first. Don't take the risk and come to me unnecessarily. Try a few home remedies first. Let's get on to a video call. If that doesn't work, then maybe. But for most cases, if you are patient and you do whatever is advised diligently, you can sort of take care of it yourself.
Okay, great. To all the aspiring sports scientists and physiotherapists, this is something that I want to ask Dr. Nikhil. What are your principles of success, and what is your definition of success? Because the plethora of guests that have been on my show, all of them have had their own definition of success, their own principles of success. So what is your idea and perception of success and principles of success?
Okay, there's personal and professional. I would rate personal success if I am an honest contributing member of society, right? if I can give back to the society, if I can be a decent family man and take care of my loved near and dear ones, then I would consider that as personal success. And professionally speaking, you're only as good as your last result. So say, for example, if tomorrow you come to me thinking that, okay, he's treated Mary Com, let me go and see him, but I'm not able to deliver results to you the way you want, then for you, I'm an idiot. Right?
Sure.
So
Okay.
you're only as good as your last result. So you can't take things for granted. You have to fight for every single result, every single day. And Hippocrates, who's the father of modern medicine, I think this is a quote attributed to him. I may be wrong, but this is the quote I think attributed to him, where he said, a good physician gets 70% of his cases treated, as in he gets success in 70% of the patients that he sees. I think that's a good enough number. So if I'm able to deliver good results to 70% or more of my clients, then I would consider that I've been professionally successful.
Sure, because I think you have a very pertinent role to play in, in terms of with athletes, of course. So, what are the benefits of physiotherapy on a general scale? What do you think are the general benefits of physiotherapy for people?
For athletes?
Yeah, for athletes and for the general population. I assume it's different, of course, because the level of activity, the lifestyle, everything is different. But on a general scale, what are the benefits? And also for athletes, what are the benefits that you think are?
So I'll start with the athlete and then I'll come to the general population. So for an athlete, getting injured means that you're losing time, big time. Like, for example, if you get injured, you're 2 steps back and it takes some time to get back to proper fitness and actually give performance. So having a good team, and it's not just a physio, it's a team effort. So you need a good coach, a good strength and conditioning coach, a physio, who work together to ensure that technically the athlete is sound, physically the athlete is sound, and he or she is taking care of the nuances that will prevent injuries from setting in. So when you have a team approach, it means to an athlete that they are not taking steps back. They are constantly stepping forward, and that will lead to an improved performance and therefore results. For general population, so for a general population, you don't need to see a physio on a regular basis. But you do need to see a physio when you're feeling discomfort. Now, here's the cusp of it, that say when a back pain patient comes to me and I give them a few exercises and I ask them to do them for the next 6 months, okay, 4 times a week for the next 6 months, just to make sure that whatever gains we achieve, they are not lost. People tend to ignore. Once the pain is gone, they stop. Okay, out of sight, out of mind.
You have to be very persistent with the practice, because it is something that, for example, I have had a trigger point, a really chronic one, and I'm not very persistent with it, I have to admit here. And I know that if you are not persistent, it's not going to work out.
No. Like I keep telling my wife that if all my patients did everything that I told them, I'll be jobless.
True, right. Certainly.
So the general population, physio is not something you require on a regular basis, but you do need to follow the advice if and when it's given to you.
True. Okay, absolutely fantastic. Thank you so much, Dr. Nikhil. It was a insightful, a fun session with you. Got to learn so much, and I'm sure the audiences have learned a lot as well. One last question. Somebody had actually asked, what is the best institute to study sports science in India? I'm not sure who that was because the comment is all... Yeah, so what is the best sports institute that you recommend?
So there are a couple. There's one in Amritsar, but I would recommend the Manipal Institute or the Chennai Institute, Ramakrishna University in Chennai. I think they are doing a very good job. Manipal universities, they are doing a very good job. So either of those two, and you'll get a good degree. But as you and I know, a degree is just the first step. In order to be successful, it depends on how you apply yourself.
True.
if you're willing
Yes,
to put in the effort, so to speak.
because because I think vivid application is what is most important, right? Not just the theory part, because every client, you have a bandwidth of diverse clients, and everybody is different. Everybody's way of recovery is different. Way of assimilating what you're actually instructing them is different. So it's completely, I think, different for every individual, right?
And the thing is that when you're working in Indian conditions, you need to be a bit tough. I'll explain myself. I'll just give you a quick example. So when I was working with the National Boxing Camp in Patiala, this is a decade ago, right? Of course, things must have changed by now. But 10 years ago, the room I was staying in Patiala, the temperature goes up till 47 degrees Celsius in the summers, and there's no AC. And in the winters, it drops down to 1 degree Celsius, there's no cooler. And when you go to have a bath in the morning, the heater may not be on. So you can imagine you need to tough it out a bit. If you really are passionate about your work, then you need to be able to take that rough and tumble with it. It's not that you'll always get a comfortable room to stay in, a 5-star hotel to be in.
True, I couldn't agree more, because I know when it comes to dealing with clients, it can be so challenging. Especially, I've seen this. I think as people age, they become more childish. So I don't know. I've seen this personally. Grandparents of my friends, they're very resistant to doing trainings with physiotherapists. So have you had any challenge like that before with people?
All the time. All the time.
All the time.
Like every athlete I've worked with has had some quirks, and even in the general population. Yes, in my clinic, I see them for only an hour. I'm not living with them like I used to live with the athletes. But still, somebody would have different work styles, different work pressures, traveling schedules would be different. The kinds of exercises they like or the preset mindsets that they come with are different. So every person, like you mentioned, is different. In fact, the same person's body is different from morning to evening. So you just have to adjust, adapt, and keep at it. It never gets
right. The recovery ratio is also very different, considering irrespective of age is a factor, gender is a factor, the food habit is a factor. Everything together, I think, in alignment works well as a physiotherapist. So thank you very, very much for being on my show. It was a pleasure having you, a delight having you. I hope the audience has taken back something worthy and meaningful. So I hope to see you soon and hear from you again. Thank you so much.
Bye-bye. Take care.
Bye-bye.